We're taping this on Thursday morning Eastern time, really early morning West Coast, and afternoon in Europe where JJ is. And obviously the last few hours have kind of been insane. By the time you listen to this or watch this, it's probably a Friday, so a lot probably has happened since then. But reports came out that super agent Mino Raiola passed away. He died, literally confirmed by many, many reputable places. Everybody was tweeting it, posting it, including our own work of establishment, by the way. So I retweeted it. Reputable places were talking about this. Then a few moments passed, and then other reputable reporters say, no, it hasn't been confirmed. And obviously Mino Raiola himself, at least his Twitter account, also countered the original news that he had passed away. I wanted to just bring this up, guys, because less about, obviously, I wish Mino Raiola the best in terms of his health, and hopefully he recovers, sending my wishes to him, his family, his loved ones, of course. It's really less about that part and more about how we are just living in a circus, man. Like, and I'm not pointing fingers. I'm literally part of it. And we're just accountable to all of this. It's insane, Jimmy Conrad, how immediacy has become so important. It's a very important news value. I get it. But at the cost of trust and accountability and attribution, I feel like we need to really take a step back, because things are just, they're just insane. I mean, it's too much for me. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, yeah, it comes down to journalistic integrity. So when some of these outlets are putting this out there without getting official confirmation, that's troubling, because they seem to be thirsting for being first as opposed to being right. And that is something that we have to count on when you have a blue check mark next to your name on Twitter in particular, or whatever, that you're right. And I don't know why you have to be first there. I mean, what does it change? I mean, yeah, you might get a few more likes, you might get a few more retweets, but if you're wrong, then it's going to really blow up in your face. And that's what's happening right now, not only to maybe one of the originators of that information, but also the people that are following through, which is crummy, because you're relying on these people that are usually normally spot on, maybe not always spot on, but close to it. I'm talking about Tancredi Palmieri, I think, is one of the first. And I know Tancredi, and he does put out some dodgy tweets sometimes, and it's, he's just trying to maintain his reputation as as a behind the scenes guy, and I'm sure our Fabrizio Romano has surpassed him and then some by like 100 times. But it's tough. It's a tough space to be in, but that doesn't mean that you need to try to reach for things that aren't true. And that's a little bit disappointing. Now, obviously, thoughts with Mino Raiola, and that he's only 54 and is potentially very close to passing away is really sad. And there's a lot to unpack with his influence in the game as well. And I know not a lot of people are a big fan of agents and in particular, but that aside, the journalistic integrity stuff is really disappointing that there was a lack of it with regard to this news.
Yeah, and well said, Jimmy. And obviously, as I mentioned, by the time you watch or listen to this, many more developments will surely come. But to me, Jonathan Johnson, and I wanted to just bring it back to you, was because you are a very reputable journalist for not just the resume that you have, but you work for CBS Sports, and of course. And how do you see this? The difference between living and working in an environment where immediacy is massive. We need to get that news out because it helps us understand how the audience can develop a certain level of trust in us. But at the same time, wait for the actual attribution. I feel like sometimes it gets lost, that kind of integrity. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I just want to start by echoing Jimmy's thoughts, where he said, thoughts with Mino Raiola's loved ones, those closest to him. He's got a great professional team around him, so thoughts with them as well at this difficult time. He's obviously in a very tough place right now, fighting for his life. And, I think as well, these moments are kind of, some of the most challenging when you are a journalist of repute. Credit to Fabrizio, our colleague, for reaching out and trying to establish, what actually was going on. I mean, I think when these kind of things happen, there is always a temptation, sort of to be the first one to break that story, as we've established. I mean, it's not just, sort of since my time starting with CBS Sports, like having worked for a number of outlets over the years, I've seen how these kind of things can work when a story lands on the desk that's not necessarily been verified, and there is that temptation to run with it, but also that need, to verify it. And I'd say, if I had to be keeping account of the number of times the obituaries could have been published for people who hadn't actually died yet, it is quite crazy. It's also quite sad that these things are prepared ahead of time, sometimes decades in advance in some cases. But I do think it is important when you have that ability to be, an insider. Jimmy mentioned Tancredi earlier. We've got our own Fabrizio Romano as well. When you have that ability, to reach behind the scenes to retrieve the actual truth about something as serious as this, it really is important to use it in that way. Because I think it's very easy to sort of be first to say like a transfer story, or I don't know, a manager getting fired, something like that, and playing with somebody's life, because it is a very, very sensitive subject, and one that has to be handled, with utmost care. And unfortunately, it seems like a lot of people out there have let themselves down with this one today. And fingers crossed, it's something that we can manage to fix moving forward, to get greater accuracy, greater responsibility in there.
Yeah, well said to both of you. We're going to move on. Just my final thought is this, everybody, which is something that Jonathan literally just said just now. Just empathy is something that sometimes is getting lost right now. Just imagine being a loved one next to, it doesn't have to be Mino Raiola, anybody, right? Just think about the consequences. I think Twitter is a very serviceable tool. I literally teach this at journalism school, but like sometimes we need to just sit back and understand that our actions, have consequences, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you so much, gents. Yeah, go ahead.
A lot of people ask me all the time, why do I spend so much time on Twitter? Why do I prefer it to stuff like Instagram or Facebook or whatever? And I find that, when I have something to say, it's the fastest way to reach your audience. And there's a lot to be said for that. It's just really important to take care with these things, to be in tune emotionally, which unfortunately a lot of people aren't on Twitter, but also, how would they feel, how would they like it if, the shoe was on the other foot, and basically their life, was being turned into a bunch of memes, which is, what happened today on Thursday in reaction to Mino Raiola's situation.
Yep. Well said, my friend. All right. Well, let's move on, everybody, and let's talk about the weekend of action. And once again, we all conclude by wishing the best to Mino Raiola, his family, his loved ones, and everybody around his close circle.